Hello, I'm your host, David Newson, and welcome to Coded in Gold. This podcast explores the fractured, beautiful pieces of our modern life through compelling stories and conversations with exceptional individuals. Let's get started. Welcome to the season finale of Coded in Gold. I actually cannot believe it's been 15 episodes so far, and there's still more to come. But I want to take this last episode of this season to reflect on a theme that has come up over and over and over again, and that's community. You know, I think a lot about community, and I mean a lot. I worry about it, honestly. It's one of those things that always felt a little elusive to me. I talk about it all the time, I strive for it, but I've struggled with really feeling a part of any community since I left the Mormon church almost some 30 years ago. That was the first place that really taught me what a community could be in both its magical and not so magical ways. As an adolescent and young adult, I bumped up against the highly structured, prescriptive teaching of the church. But there was also really beautiful clarity in its own way. You knew exactly what community meant. It was baked into the culture. Are you sick? Someone shows up at the door with food. Your car breaks down, someone from church can help you fix it. You don't have to ask. People just show up. They intervene in your life quietly, without ceremony. That was just the rhythm of things. It was expected, and it worked. Mormons even built in more formal safety nets with church welfare programs separate from the federal government. There was an expectation of caring within the community. While I had to leave because of the rigid expectations of who could participate in the community, I didn't know at the time how rare it was to have that kind of a support system. I've tried since then to rebuild it. I've looked for it in the gay community in New York, in California, in all these vibrant, progressive spaces where I hoped I'd find belonging. But I never quite got that feeling. Not fully. Not in the same way. It wasn't until I found my husband and we were contemplating having our son that I had to deeply consider the question, how does one create and experience community? Now that I'm a dad, this is the phase of life where the need for community has come roaring back. The first place I need to focus is right here. Me, my husband, and our son. That's our core unit. That's our base. It feels good. It feels whole. I also have the support of my mother and my siblings. But when we try to build outward, play dates, school events, other families, it takes energy, and sometimes it's exhausting. Sometimes I find myself asking, is this the right family for us? Are we connecting? Is this community, or is it just proximity? Our modern lives are full, so scheduled. Everything requires planning. Even the play dates are strategic. And honestly, that kind of structure can kill the spontaneity, the magic that community used to have. I'm also so worried about the impact that devices and social media have on our ability to really connect and form relationships in real life. Will my son be able to build strong bonds when the addictive lure of an iPhone enters his life? I know it's a force that's hard for me to resist. But then there are those moments. Someone unexpectedly steps in. A neighbor offers help. A friend shows up unprompted. And you remember, oh yeah, people can surprise you. And most of the time, they surprise you in good ways. What I'm coming to understand is that community isn't always this big defined thing. Maybe it doesn't have to be as deliberate as I make it out to be in my head. It's built slowly, through school drop-offs, shared meals, small gestures. You start connecting with other families, other humans, and when you really step back and look, you realize, oh, this is it. This is a community. I'm in it. We're doing it. Throughout the course of this podcast, I've also realized that part of my community has been right here. The people I've gotten to speak to, some old friends, some new, are a part of my community. And my perspective on community has been indelibly shaped by the incredible conversations I've had over the past 15 episodes. The subject just kept coming up, sometimes directly, sometimes just under the surface. So I've pulled together some of those moments, all circling the same question. What does community mean to you? Let's hear what some of my guests had to say. Paige O'Neal.
I'd like to be someone who is more well grounded in friends, family, and community. I don't ever have enough time to cultivate community.
Can we talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, yeah.
What is your definition of community? How do you define that? Because I struggle with community and through my whole life, right?
Yeah, me too.
So
Me too. Because I'm so busy all the time. Who's got time to cultivate community when you're traveling all over the world and
that's
you're
right.
managing global teams and you're, helping companies grow and you're working 24/7. But I mean, for me, I guess, and all the studies say that as we age, which, I'm very well aware that I'm a woman in my 50s, so I'm thinking about things from that perspective as well. But, as you age, one of the things that's most important to longevity is community, is having rich friendships. And I mean, I guess for me, it's the nourishment that you get outside yourself from your friends, from your interests, from the people that you encounter, that you're connecting with on a deeper level around shared passions. And those things have got the potential, I believe, to just immensely enrich your life. And I go back to going to the barn. My friends at the barn, I don't really see them outside, except for my trainer. I see him occasionally outside of the barn, but
Yeah.
I don't see them really outside the barn. But we go there. We've got a certain set of topics that we talk about. We have deep conversations about horses and riding and tack and barn gossip and
Wow.
all of those things. And it's just so nourishing, I think, is the best word that I can come up with.
Paul Sullivan.
Another thing that I'm super proud of is that, this event we had the other night, I looked around the room and I said, there are only two people in here that I knew 3 years ago. One was a guy from the birthing class, and the other was just this fella who's, just known from around town. And that was really rewarding. But one of the guys in the room, because change starts slowly, and he's a dad. He's married to another dad, same sex couple as you are, and they have twins, and they moved from Brooklyn out to Wilton. Now, this guy is a doctor who went to Harvard Medical School. His husband is also a doctor who, I think he went to school in London, but he's a top psychologist in New York City. They moved from Brooklyn out to Wilton, and they're sitting at the playground with their two boys, and they're chitter-chattering. And this mom comes up to him. His name is Ramon. Comes up to Ramon and says, we have this Facebook group in Wilton, and I'm just wondering, which one of you is kind of like, the mom?
Oh.
And Ramon says, neither of us. We're dad. I'm a dad.
Yeah.
He's a dad.
Yeah.
And the woman was like, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to say that. I didn't.
Sure,
And he recently told me the story, and she's telling me the story, and I said, she mentioned a Facebook group, Ramon. He's like, yeah. I was like, okay, here's what you're gonna do. And he's like, I'm appalled. Like, that's all. I was like, I agree. That was awful. But well-meaning people sometimes say stupid things. You want to get into that group. It's like, I don't want to be in that group. What are you talking about? It's like, you don't understand. She was trying to invite you to the Facebook moms group for Wilton. And if you don't get in that, when your boys want to fill in the blank, play soccer, try ice skating, whatever, try out for the school play, if you're not in that group, you will have no access to the information in your town. And he said, well, what should I do? I said, Ramon, you come to the right place. I grew up Irish Catholic. I know guilt like anybody. You're going to call that woman up. You are going to make her feel horrible. Horrible. And then you're going to ask to be in the group. He's like, can I do that? I said, Ramon, without my help, you had a better shot at getting into Harvard Medical School than you do getting into the Facebook moms group in Wilton, Connecticut. So he's like, all right, I'm going to do it. And he does it, and he gets in. But here's the heartening part of the story. Once he got in, the woman, she realized, like, this is kind of stupid. So it's now the Wilton, the parents group. And so she renamed it the Wilton Parents Group, and she's invited all of these other dads in.
Whoa, that is so awesome.
Yeah, but it took this ridiculous thing. He reached out to me, and it just took people like, you know what? Why is it just, a mom's group. They got plenty of dads on my
Yeah.
text chain here. And, what are we really trying to do? We're not really, men or women in these situations or moms or dads in these situations. We're parents and we want the best for our children. But you can only sometimes get the best for your children if you can get that access.
That's
So
right.
that
And
was,
it's so, I'm glad you brought up that story. I had a similar experience, different outcome. And you would have thought, like, okay, two men having a child in San Francisco, which was where we were at the time, right? Like, as we were preparing for, our son's arrival. And everyone told me in San Francisco, oh, you need to be in the Golden Gate, like, mothers group, right? That's where
yeah.
all of the things that you just mentioned, like, are happening. If you want to know what's happening, if you want to soccer and this and that or whatever, like, you've got to be like,
You think your son's going to Stanford. It starts with you getting in the Golden Grade.
totally,
Do not
totally.
screw up his chances
Yeah,
to go
yeah.
to
It
Stanford.
starts there. Everything starts there. Yeah. And so I reached out and literally there was a little bit of dialogue, but there was like, I knocked on that door and the door remained closed. And it kind of blew my mind. Like, and I had a very similar reaction to Ramon. Like, at first I was just like, yeah. Whoa. Like, I had no idea that there was like, a big, iron gate around this, like this group, but apparently like, and this goes back, it might've changed. So I don't want to, I'm not, trying to call people out, but what I am trying to say is, gosh, those groups are full of rich resources and a sense of community, that there's like people that because it's, built around moms or mothers, it can, and I think unintentionally, be exclusionary because like maybe they don't realize there's, so many, lead dads around that do need access to that information and access to the community.
I say like, in the community, dads need moms to be their allies, just as in the workplace, working moms need lead dads to be their allies.
Peter Cochran. So you met me at a phase of life where we were contemplating having our first child. Mm-hmm. And I was on this quest for community. Like, how does one create and experience community? And like TEDx was one of those projects. It was like, okay, the Mormons got rid of me. Like, I had to leave that. And then I thought, like, in my 20s, like, oh no, my new community is going to be the gay community. And I never really got that. Like, the gay community for me was welcoming. It's not a matter of being welcoming. It was definitely welcoming. I just didn't feel that, like, you hear those stories of those guys that like leave their tiny little town in upstate New York, which is where I was, right? They go to San Francisco, this beacon of light, this like little, tiny place by the bay, that's so wonderful and magical. And where it's like, oh my gosh, people hanging out in each other's houses and they're just kind of talking through the windows and like everything's like, oh wow, this magical place where everyone can just be who they are, be loved, be part of this larger whole, that has all those elements of like community. Mm-hmm. And I just never, in the gay community in New York, in the gay community in California, it didn't really matter where I was. Like, I just never really got that feeling.
Totally. There's the project on my website called Bloodlust, where it's these self-portraits wrapped in foil to make this confusing like body in landscape thing. And I was thinking about the bodies from the Pompeii and Herculaneum excavations. So it's that thing where the bodies became like foreground and background.
Yep.
And I talk about the project in that context of this kind of isolation and beginnings of panic and stuff. But what it really started as was feeling so isolated in the gay community in San Francisco, which is supposed to be this, the most gay city in America. And I was just like, I don't know. Eventually I was like, I think this just isn't for me. 10 years in, never felt connected, had a couple of gay friends, had a great community, but it was not by any means a gay community. So I looked at kintsugi, the Japanese art of ceramic repair, where if a vase or a platter or something typically used as a an object breaks, instead of just throwing it out, you repair it and highlight that fissure with gold. So the broken part of this vessel, it becomes part of its history in an exceedingly beautiful way. So making each of the masks, I would break them to varying degrees to kind of go, okay, maybe around like age 6 or 7, there was a big event here. Let's show a bit of that. And then show these years of recovery. And then, okay, maybe around 11, 12, something bad happened, show a bit of that. And through the series, you'll see these ebbs and flows from age 1 to 28, where by 27, I had what essentially felt like an erasure of identity through these continued panic attacks and it getting worse and worse and worse to the point where shortly before you and I met, actually, I was pretty close to bedridden for about 2 weeks, just in a constant state of a fit of pique. And the year, so 27 is this kind of full erasure. There's a fully gold sort of hole where my features should be. And then by 28, which was the year I was when I put the show on, you see all these fractured pieces, but the face is coming back together. And something that I really loved as a sort of background to the making of that show was my friends actually helped me make the 28th mask. So I was putting on the show, and it was a very technically complicated show to put on, a lot of sculpture and these hanging flowers. And I was kind of like directing all of my friends back in San Francisco to put the mask there, hang the flowers here, while trying to finish this 28th mask. So, and I was finally like, I can't do this. Can you help? And I had friends there helping to outline all the fissures. And they, for me, were a real part of coming back to figuring out who Peter was again.
David Morgenstern. You know, you seem, and I made this observation the first time that we met, you seem very tuned into this, a sense of community. And it's one that I've struggled with probably since not being a Mormon anymore. But you seem to have this very, not that it's different for you. What I'm saying is you seem to be fairly fluid with how you can move through and also be a convener of community. And so I want to learn from you, like, okay, what kind of a mindset do you have when you're, like, I tend to be kind of a social recluse, right? Like, I'm out in the world when I need to be, and I can be on stage and the curtain goes up and I feel like, you know, it's not performative, but I feel like it's a lot of energy for me to, like, be out in the world. But my preference is to, like, come back home, cocoon, like, be a recluse and recharge my batteries, because it takes a lot.
You and my husband can have so much fun doing that.
Yes.
Yeah.
But what does community mean to you, right?
Yeah, I think so I appreciate the question. I think this is where I'll probably talk about the influence of my mom, because she's a beast. Like,
she's a beast.
She runs everything, but in, like, the most authentic way. And a lot of her work, so she has a really interesting career path. She was both my parents were musicians at one point, and then she became a child therapist and musician, and now works with, like, boards and nonprofits on their planning. And her whole thing is about giving back. And so I saw her going from different organization to different organization, and a lot of what that work was focused on was on building community. But I think I'll also go back to my childhood. Some of those roles that I talked about of, you know, the groups that were focused on race relations, you just sort of early on had to have, you were putting the different pieces together and learning how to facilitate. And I think in a strange way, what's the most scary part about Gaddy's for me is being in front of things, right? And I think I am someone who never had the self-confidence to be I always wanted to be the chief of staff, or I always wanted to be the vice president and sort of facilitating other people's decisions as opposed to leading with my own point of view. So I think from that experience, I did learn, hey, how do you just use, listening is the most underrated skill in the world, right? And how do you use listening to put pieces together, sort of operate under the assumption that most people, people are selfish and they just care about themselves. So how do you use questions to get people going? So that was sort of like one tangible skill set. And I will actually say my experience working as a suicide hotline counselor for the Trevor Project was, I didn't do it to learn those skills and sort of enhance how I take it, but like that singular experience, I took away so much that has helped me form connections and put different community together. And then maybe an unexpected answer, I'd actually say, with my sort of navigating my health challenges in life, I'm so protective of my energy and my battery. So I sort of describe it as we get one battery that powers everything. And so how do you figure out what is charging that battery and what is draining from it? And knowing for me that I get so excited by putting those pieces together, but also I only focus the energy on people that I want to be around and just don't have the energy or time for situations that are not going to be for me. How has that sort of shown up for you now when you think about it as a parent and navigating what we need to be doing for our kids or situations we want to put them in?
This is thank you for asking me that. It's an area I worry the most about, perhaps, because we know we have to, right? Like we have to. You have to participate as a part of like being a parent. Like, well, for us, we feel like we have to participate because we want Xander to be deeply have deep connections. Like we know connections, like we know community. Like we're not talking about armchair pontifications, right? We know community, like as people age, like longevity is based in like, okay, what kind of a community do you have around you? Are you connected? Are you engaged? Are you like and we know the benefits of community when like, I think back to even my Mormon days, like someone's sick at home, right? Somebody from church comes in and brings food for the family. Like if it's mom that's out or like dad that's out, like whoever, people show up and kind of almost intervene in your life to make it easier for a period of time because like that's what people who care about people do. And it would show up in all different types of ways, whether it was childcare or meals or, whatever. It was literally whatever you needed. And so I know that those bonds are really, really important. And we don't have a religious community today, right? So we're kind of trying to build community. And that feels really hard where it's like, oh, okay, is this the right family for us? Is this the right family for us? Right. And it's like, it kind of starts with school. Like, okay, who are the school kids? Is this the right family for us? Is this the right family for us? And then we're also fighting against our own, like, we just want to be home. Like, we just want to be home or not necessarily home, but like out with Xander doing something. Yeah. And it's not from a selfish place. It's just from a place of comfort. Like that core unit of community, the three of us, feels incredibly comfortable. It feels meaningful. It feels purposeful. It feels awesome. And when you add others to it, it takes energy. You got to be committed to it. Like there's just a lot of things. And I think I'm taking a long time to answer the question, but I worry that that's an area that we could do better on.
I think
like play
all
dates,
of us, right?
like play dates, gosh, and it kind of, COVID really freaked us out, right? So that was the time period where like, okay, he was still in daycare. And then, okay, pre-K starts where it's like school environment, and then kindergarten, and it's like, okay, you got these play dates, and we signed up to be a host family, so people that were new, like once we were in kindergarten, people that were new, like we would and I signed up because to kind of force me to like, oh, you're going to be a host family, you got to like go and meet these people. Like that's the expectation, and I do pretty good when there's expectations, so it's like, okay, there's an expectation from someone else, I'm going to do it. And so I would do it. Or then there would be something else where it's like, oh, we need to set up play dates. That's what people do. And there's a part of us that's like, Do we have to? And not because we don't like other people. We do. Every time that we've had a play date, we've been really, really glad that we did it. There was connection. There was understanding. Another thing, like, don't judge a book by its cover. Like, people surprise us all of the time, which is wonderful. And that's kind of the hidden benefit of community. People do surprise you, and they surprise you in really good ways most of the time. And so, like, and I talk about community all of the time. Like, I am a very firm believer in it. It's just, it feels elusive, and it feels really complex in the modern world. Matthew Linaman.
I owe a lot to that time, that cafe, for introducing me to some of these people. One of the regulars came in basically out of the blue. I'd known him a little bit, and he basically said, when you get to the point that you might need a loan, like, when you're really close and you just need that little bit of extra, I could give you that loan.
Wow.
And this, I was making his coffee while he told me this. So I was stunned. So, and then I think actually maybe the very next week that I found out the price got reduced. And so I worked with him and we jumped on it. And he gave me a private loan. And, we met with a lawyer and signed all these very scary papers and documents. And I was so nervous. And so now years later, I officially own the cello. But, I have actually a printout on my wall here of all the donors that donated, because I feel like part of me wants to put it in my cello case, shrink it down and like put it in my cello case, because I own my cello. But it's actually a lot of these people, all these people sort of paid into for me to have this opportunity to have this cello, and since having this cello, it's really opened up a lot in my ability of my growth as a cellist, and my opportunities of being able to play with certain groups and certain people. So I feel like I carry that with me when I play. I carry all those people with me, and it's humbling. It's humbling and encouraging. It's like, it's enheartening somehow. I don't know if there's a better word, but it's like, it's a gratitude feeling that when I bring those people with me when I play.
I think that's right. In
Yeah.
my observations of you since we've met, you radiate joy in all that you do.
Thanks.
And it's palpable. I mean, it's not something that, just some people get to see. You share it so incredibly freely. And you also get to share it with, so how old are your students?
Yeah, I have students from, I think my youngest right now is like 9 or 10 years old.
Wow.
They're very cute. And I go all the way up through adult students. I have some adult students in their 60s, I think they are.
Wow.
And so it's a gamut. It's a range, And sometimes in lessons, you get to, even with these young people, you get to a kernel of truth about something, about life. I had a student, this is actually pretty kind of connected. I had a student who, she needed a new cello. She literally just like had grown and needed a bigger cello. But she had improved a lot, so she needed a better quality instrument too, one that was a little easier to play, and just so that you could actually do more with it. She was delaying, months and months and months and months and months went by. And we finally talked about it, and I learned that she loved her cello, and she was having a hard time letting go of her cello. And because for me growing up, I remember getting the new cello was the exciting thing. I wasn't so concerned about the old, like, okay, yeah, great, I don't have to play that darn thing anymore.
She was attached.
So she was attached, and we got to have, and I think at the time she was 14, so she was already a little older, but we got to have a very honest conversation that brought both of us to tears about what I said was, like, first I took off any pressure to do anything. And then we got to have a really honest conversation about the attachment and letting things go. And and I said, we could, because I've had to do that with a cello too, and it didn't hit me in the moment, you know, when I bought the fancy cello I'm talking about. I did have a cello already, It wasn't a great cello, but it wasn't a terrible cello. And but I sold it and I got a little bit of money that I was able to throw towards the new cello. Um, and years and years later, I realized I missed that cello, that I never got to really thank it for what it did for me. So that's what I told her. So I said, you could just thank your cello for all it's done for you. And I mean, I don't know. That was sort of the kernel of the truth that we got to that day. So sometimes that happens, and sometimes the kernel of truth is just like the insight is having an insight about hearing a note more clearly, or hearing resonance for the very first time, like hearing a note ring, really getting a note to ring for the first time, and seeing a student's face go like, I hear seeing them hear it. So that's, I mean, I feel like I'm lighting up just talking about this.
Yeah, you are.
So yeah, getting to, because were it not for my teachers, and mentors, and I would not be where I am and who I am today. And so there is an essence of wanting to carry it, to pay it forward in that sense,
Well, yeah, it's also it's a thread that's pulled through time, you know. Teachers, and that's the beauty, I think, of teaching, and those that take up teaching, right, who have been taught by masters, who then become the master themselves, to then be able to like teach the craft to like the next generation, or in this case, right, it doesn't matter what generation you are, but it's the next
Right,
generation of player,
right.
to then find their own way is pretty magical, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, you want to talk about passing on legacy. Teaching's certainly one of the foremost ways to do that. Nick Little. I want to talk a little bit about community. You know, my own experience through life is that I feel like we've witnessed an erosion of community.
Yes.
On many, many levels. I mean, you fast forward to today, and like you can barely talk to your neighbors.
I'd like to share a little bit about what I'm doing as an educator. I always find that, the saying is, it takes a village to raise a child. I started my first year teaching, the bookmobile started coming through. Joni Fitzgibbons and Hope Mazeroski started creating this portable bus filled with books donated by the community, by Price Chopper, by Tops when it was there, by Walmart, it started with the big businesses that were not really mom and pop shops. And they drove to all the lower income areas of Oswego on a weekly basis, on a daily basis. And when I was getting my master's in 2013, my internship for community service was with the bookmobile. And I started looking at this. In the moment we went into, it was like Hamilton Homes, or not Hamilton Homes, it was one of those, it was a trailer park out in Scriba. I always think that as a teacher, when you go into any area, you should drive around and look before you apply. Not to deter you or whatnot, but to get a sense of what are you up against and what is it that you need to do to meet the needs of this community. And I will say that you don't see it in the city. You see some, decay here and there. Main Street is falling. Not in Oswego. I will be proud of that. Oswego City's Main Street's awesome. But you don't see it. The moment I took that ride, and you had kids running out of the trailer with no shirt on, no shoes on, it was like you were in a third world country. And I can't tell you what that felt like to me. These are kids I teach. And it's like dirt roads, grass not cut, dog poop everywhere, and like doors dilapidated. Like this is us. And we'd read to them, and we'd provide a snack. There was a snack donated every time, and they get a quality book. We're not talking like a dollar store book. We're talking like Harry Potter chapter books, Twilight books, and we had books for adults too. And wow. We would have a STEM activity too. that was huge for the community to see, because the community doesn't want to come to you anymore. It really doesn't. We talked about that too. There wasn't this one central location. We went to them because some of them can't. Some of them actually couldn't. So we started doing that, and the bookmobile is there, and I encourage everyone to look at oswegobookmobile.com. It is just amazing, and they think they are getting a brand new bus finally. We have a generator in the back of it when I was there, and it was like hillbilly deluxe, like riding with this gas motor, reading a book and like puffing on the gas exumes. I was like, no, this is not my ideal reading time. But
Sure.
then next, I started doing volunteering. I was the volunteer coordinator for Harborfest for 2 years, which was the fireworks show.
Ah,
And so I brought in teachers and community members, and we talked a lot about, I trained them in how to clean up. People have pride in our community, but they don't know what to do with it. We have people 30 years, this Harborfest has been going for 30 plus years. There's volunteers who have been there for 30 years, and they are proud of it. And
sure.
and it's they get a badge, and that's all they want is, I'm proud of it. And I got to see and bring together local shops to get kids to clean up. We had Boy Scouts come and clean up the park after it was trashed, and all these local organizations pitched in. So that idea from Donors Choose of all these people can come and bring you money, I'm kind of relaying them now, and it's not just monetary gifts. It's about advertising their presence in the community and letting kids know, hey, there's a bike shop. We'll let you rent a bike for $10. Go ride around the city. Hey, there's a bowling alley, and they'll give you $5 off on Tuesdays. Stuff that kids need to do that is safe and inexpensive is great.
Joel Ferris and Chris Everett. Joel, how do you define community?
How do I define community? I think community can look very different for different people depending on their particular context and needs.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, for me, community is a small group of people who I know see me, love me, and can hold me accountable to my own becoming as a human. That's how I define community.
I love that.
And it's typically facilitated over meals and good wine. Yeah.
Fantastic. Chris, how about you? How do you define community?
I'm thinking about community these days in the context of the farm, of getting back to some basics. And for me, it feels like a remembering, a homecoming in some ways. In the barn, when we have this wildly diverse group of people, and the diversity of their backgrounds, the diversity of the work that they do, their political beliefs, their religious beliefs, and we're all in the room. We're all in the room. And music, of course, the art will do its work to help bring us together and mend us in some ways. But it is a sacred moment, and it needs to be held with some reverence and guided just a little bit. And so before every single show, I offer a little experience design that is a reminder that we are more the same than we are different. It's a reminder of what it feels like to be a neighbor, to be a friend, to be a family member. So much of the social media and the news that we're taking in is divisive, in that it makes us want to believe that everybody is a cardboard cutout. You are this or you are that. And that is, in fact, not true. We are all profoundly complex. And I could go down a whole other rabbit hole with this, but in this moment, we're finding ourselves saying, how could you, how could you, how could you? And the question is not that, it is, what is it like to be you? We need to get back to this place of remembering each other's humanity. And there are small steps to that. And in that remembering of the humanity, and the diving into the complexity and reconnecting with the humanness of each other, that's how community starts to rebuild. And so some simple ways that looks in the barn is even just a simple humming exercise. Science tells us that when you go to a concert, that by the end of the concert, our heartbeats are matched. Our neurons are matched. It's called synchrony. And when I was, before a show, I was talking about the humming of the summer sun and the humming of the grass and the hum that is in the room when we're all together. And could we experiment and see if we could sync with each other before the concert rather than wait until after the concert?
Sure.
And so I invited people. I said, I know not everybody can sing, but we can all hum. So let's let out a hum and see if we can agree on a note just from listening to each other. And we did this, and in 20 seconds, we all agreed on a note. Then I said, could you please harmonize to that note? And we let out this beautiful chord. And so in less than 40 seconds, we had synced with each other. And it is a reminder that we are wired to be in sync with each other. And in many ways, we've just forgotten. And so over time, as people, we have to earn trust for people to be in the room. We have to create an incredibly safe container so everyone feels welcome. These little reminders of what it feels like to lean on each other, that we are connecting with each other, we're literally breaking bread with each other. Community starts forming, but I really believe that the community is our natural state, and we just have forgotten.
Kristen Hayden.
Those experiences, when we're out of our comfort zone, when we're in a new world, it expands our sense of what's possible. Because before that, on autopilot, we're very like, this is all we think is possible. This is what we think is possible. This is all we know. This is all we see. This is all we experience. And when you're kind of forced, and that's the beauty of travel, and you can't stay attached to this very narrow view of what's possible, because you are like, oh wow, they do it really differently here. And then suddenly it creates a possibility in your brain, like, oh, there's more than one way to do this.
That's right.
Many ways to do this.
That's
and suddenly your sense of what's possible, it just expands. As you said, earlier, when we were talking about your ability as a gay man to marry, which you did not think was possible at all.
That's right.
And then suddenly it's like, oh, like for even maybe for your family traveling into other parts of the world where it's not legal and possible for people to see you and to be thinking, oh, wow, like I didn't even know that could exist. And so that's the power, I think, of what we're talking about. And that's how it links to vision.
Like what would you leave our audience with?
Hold the vision.
I love
Particularly now. I think that now more than ever before, that hold the vision for yourself, hold the vision for your community, for your family, for the world. Hold the vision. And holding the vision, again, what do we mean by that? It is acting as if that vision is possible, which I know can sound hard, but that's what it takes. All the incredible positive things that exist in our world right now started with somebody having a vision, and started usually with other people saying that's impossible, that's crazy, that can't happen. And now we take it for granted. That's right. It's the way that things are, but it started in somebody's head with vision. It started with declaring it. It started with enrolling other people in the vision. And I think that, as I say, right now especially, we need that.
Thank you for listening to the first season of Coated in Gold. We are going to take... Let's try that again. Thank you for listening to the first season of Coated in Gold. We are going to be taking a short summer break for the month of July, but don't worry. I have many more incredible conversations coming your way in season 2. In the meantime, it would mean so much if you would like, comment, or share this podcast with people in your life so we can keep growing this community. I've been your host, David Newson. Thank you and take good care.